Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4, Privet Drive, were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. And here's the fact that nothing odd will happen in the rest of this book.
Yeah.
Is the crazy thing.
It's perfectly normal. I'm actually shocked by its mundanity.
I actually
The
don't
whole
hold with
time.
any nonsense either.
The
This is
Dursleys, professional
strictly-
managerial class, normal life.
Strictly non-nonsense show here on the Socialist Shelf.
You're now listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.
Welcome to the Socialist Shelf. Lenore, we're back for an episode we said we weren't going to do like a year and a half ago, and now we're going to do like 3 of them. How are you feeling today?
You know what? Honestly, I'm hyped for it. It's been a while since I came back to this, and like, it's fun to go back to when it was good. Not that the books don't hold up, but the whole ecosystem around it, and the moldy blackened heart at its center is it's on my mind these days.
We'll get into it, but we have a returning guest. We have Aysha U. Farah. Welcome back to the show, Aysha. At this point, we got to get you like a challenge coin or a t-shirt or something. Stay returning.
Thank you so much. I love to come back on to talk about what seems to be my niche, which is British freaks.
Yes, we fucking love a British freak on this show.
Children's fantasy, like C.S. Lewis, Harry Potter, Catcher in the Rye.
What does J.K. Rowling stand for?
Yeah, Catcher in the Rye is the I guess the outlier in that it's actually good, and that guy, I think whatever was wrong with him, he was kind of entitled to.
Yeah, it was like fine. It wasn't a big deal. C.S. Lewis, on the other hand, well, you can listen to the episode. But yeah, no, we're talking about J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. We're going to have to do multiple episodes on this, and we will be. But for this episode, we're talking about the first one, Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on which version.
If you're a nerd.
Yeah, depending if you're a nerd.
The Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone thing bothers me because I know the first few books, they Americanize them, but the Philosopher's Stone is like a thing. It's like a historical, totem. It's not something that you, I don't understand. What, you think that Americans don't know what a philosopher is? I mean, probably not, but no more likely that British people do.
Well, and we didn't have this problem with Full Metal Alchemist.
Right.
Yeah, well, regardless, that's what they did. I don't know why. My version's the Sorcerer's Stone. When I read it, it was Sorcerer's Stone, so I'm going to be calling it the Sorcerer's Stone. It's got that nice alliteration. Listener, call it what you want. But it's the first book in the Harry Potter series. You've heard of Harry Potter. Even if you haven't read it, you probably have read it. It's fucking huge. We all loved it. It got bizarre. Things were weird. J.K. Rowling turned out to be a freak. But also, even before she turned out to be a freak, things got really weird around it. The whole ecosystem, the obsession, the conservative backlash, the money. I mean, it was just, it's just a whole thing that really captures this late 90s to, almost 2010 or so, just strange phenomenon that we're still sort of living with the repercussions of. And
the
now
long 1990s.
Yeah, they're going to bring it back with a fucking HBO show, apparently. God. So, we never escape. So we're going to, not everything is going to be able to be said on this episode, but a lot will be able to be said. So first, we'll just start off. Aysha, what's your background with Harry Potter?
I read Harry Potter probably for the first time, right when it came out, actually. I feel like that I read it right before the wave hit. because my grandma brought it to me from the UK.
Okay.
So I read Harry Potter before it was cool.
Gotcha.
And I actually I basically grew up along with Harry Potter. I was 17 the year the 7th book came out.
Oh, that rules.
I was right in the demo. I loved the Harry Potter books. I read them all the first day they came out. I have read them all multiple times. I probably haven't read them in over a decade, but reading through The Philosopher's Stone over the past couple days, I'm like, yeah, I remember every word of this because I listened to the audiobooks as a kid.
Right.
Repeat over and over, because I don't think we didn't really have TV when I was young, so I just listened to books on tape. So yeah, these books are very, very ingrained in my memory. And along with all of the stuff that came after, and I don't know, reading through them, I was kind of hoping that it was gonna suck, but it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It's like a good kid's book.
Yeah. The bit where Fred and George finish out the school song with a very slow funeral dirge drew audible chuckles from me. That was the point where I was like, okay, yeah, this shit holds up.
Yeah, it is legitimately a good children's story with sort of a darkness at the center of it that is way more obvious now. But we can talk about that when we start talking about Rowling. But I think that there's a lot of you see people online wanting to talk about how the books have always been bad and that they actually suck and they're not good, which is okay, sure, they're not great literature. But I think that it's worthless to try to pretend that things that are made by people who turn out to be shitty are always bad, because that's just not true.
It's the same thing where people are like, Kanye West was always bad. No, Graduation fucking rips. Everyone knows it does. Or Dave Chappelle, because he was transphobic, wasn't funny. Yes, he was. The Chappelle Show is one of the funniest shows ever made. The tragedy is that these people suck, right? Unfortunately.
Right. Chinatown is an amazing movie. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not to compare Graduation to Harry Potter, but you know what I'm saying? The idea is someone can make something good and they can be bad. And unfortunately, morality doesn't necessarily equate to talent or skill at a certain thing. Lenore, you have a pretty similar background with Harry Potter, don't you?
Oh yeah. I grew up right along with it as well. I believe we got books 1 through 3 for Christmas when those had dropped in the United States, and then that just became our thing. That was something that my family and I read every single night. We moved on to other books, of course. We did Aragon. We did fucking Leo Frankowski for some reason. But, Harry Potter was the thing. Harry Potter originated this tradition. And, I was in the middle of it. I went to the, late night releases for books 5 through 7. 7 actually was released on my birthday. And I was visiting my grandparents in Winona, Minnesota at the time. The Great River Shakespeare Festival is headquartered there. And so that Shakespeare company, the actors broke open the first box of Harry Potter 7 in that city and did a dramatic reading of chapter 1.
Wow. Yeah, the 7th book coming out was such an event that I also remember exactly what I did that day. I went to Otakon, which stands for Otaku Convention, in Baltimore, and I sold art at my friend's table, and then I went and sang with my band at a pub, which I could only get into because I sang with the band, and then I went and picked up a Harry Potter book. I remember this day being incredible.
Let's go. Let's
See,
go.
That sounds like a day that would be crafted for that. It seems like you just lived the platonic ideal of what the day that Harry Potter 7 should drop. That's fantastic. Well, my background with Harry Potter is a little different as the resident evangelical on the show.
Resident evangelical.
Ex-evangelical. Resident evangelical. I was, as a child, Harry Potter was not an acceptable piece of media in my milieu. Now, I will say my parents have come around on it. They came around on it later when I in high school really pushed back, and then they were like, wait a second, this is bullshit. But what you have to understand is when these books came out, the internet, being on the social media was not as prevalent. What you did have was email chain mail. a whole lot of it, including literal articles from The Onion that were just pasted without the Onion header and sent as chainmail that proved that J.K. Rowling was a witch. The Christian high school that I went to did not have Harry Potter in the library. In fact, there was an entire fight of it. You were not supposed to bring Harry Potter to school. That was a serious thing. And that was because my parents, for media, listened to a little organization called Focus on the Family. We've heard of this before. If you're in
Friends of the show,
heard of it.
Our let's call it parent podcast likes to talk about this one.
Our three dads.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to quote from Focus on the Family here, because they talk about it, and this is a beautiful little review. They like to sometimes in their reviews, post like 95, they try to be a little more like amenable. So there's some kind of shift in the mid 90s. If you read their literature, they try to be a little more like on the fence, while very clearly showing their hand. Don't know why they do it this way.
They want to seem less like freaks.
Yeah, it doesn't work though, because they write, even if Harry Potter's magic isn't of the occult, it still carries with it serious dangers. First, Rowling's stories, unlike Lewis's or Tolkien's, are neither a Christian allegory nor do they subscribe to a consistent Christian worldview. And second, we live in a culture that glorifies and promotes witchcraft and the occult. No matter what the essence of Harry's magic, the effect of it is undoubtedly to raise curiosity about magic and wizardry. That, accompanied by violent and scary scenes, a few mild profanities, and hints at moral relativism, should be enough to keep families from shouting hurrah for Harry.
This, makes Harry Potter sound way cooler than it is. Actually, Harry Potter is very waspy, and it doesn't really have moral relativism. That's, one of the big problems in it.
It's literally good and evil. I mean, I guess there's Snape is the only even attempt at moral relativism, but especially for the first one, come the fuck on.
Yeah, there's just one incel.
Another thing Focus on the Family wrote, this is 3 years ago. Okay, this next one. It's a review of Emma Watson's career.
referring
to the fact she posted a picture of some kind of witch coven thing, some kind of feminist witch coven or something. I don't really know. It was just some kind of whatever, not a big deal, but some just dumb internet thing. And they said, I find Watson's affinity for finding meaningful community among witches curious. Could growing up playing a witch have predisposed her toward, it seems from her statements, calling a coven her spiritual home? Apart from a conversation with her, there would be no way to know. But it's telling that perhaps the most famous witch of recent pop culture seems to embrace witchcraft IRL. And then it breaks down IRL and says, in parentheses, in real life.
Get a job. Leave her alone.
Did they, out of curiosity, did they have anything to say about Rupert Grint in Mojo, the gangster play? Anything to say about Harry Potter and Daniel Radcliffe and Equus?
No, but they did go on to say that J.K. Rowling has in many ways redeemed herself.
Oh.
Here we go.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the last thing I wanted to note here is there was a lot of debate in the Catholic community. I had to throw this one out for Ryan about Harry Potter. I am curious what Ryan's background is, but I
was also raised Catholic.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So you might have some insight to this too, Aysha, but I looked into it, and the Vatican's official newspaper actually endorsed the moral themes of Harry Potter when in 2003 or so. But a man by the name of Gabriel Amorth, one of the official exorcists of the Archdiocese of Rome and founder of International Association of Exorcists,
they have those
on their payroll, did say behind Harry Potter hides the signature of the King of Darkness, the devil, and in private, Pope Benedict agreed with him. All of this hatred for Harry Potter, it was actually interesting. Apparently, J.K. Rowling in 2007 was supposed to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom from the United States, which is fucking insane, but whatever.
They should be handing other shit to everybody.
Evangelical forces in the White House convinced Bush not to do it, even though apparently Barbara Bush was a fan of the series.
Also, should we really be listening to a guy called Amorth about what the devil is and isn't doing?
Yeah, come on.
Lenore, he is the founder of the International Association of Exorcists, a thing that you need to take seriously.
He sounds like one of the Orcai.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he came to me in a dream and asked me to render up my a fifth of my blood to his, dark project.
Well, Pope Benedict didn't like it, but he also wasn't willing to say it from his special chair. So I don't think
he was a fucking Nazi.
Yeah, also that. Also that. So, that's the stance on Harry Potter. I found like just looking like Christianity Today's paper on it is so funny because it's like we have to realize that witchcraft, because it is real, we all need to be concerned about it. That kind of shit. It goes deep, but I will say for me, Harry Potter eventually, when I turned probably like 15 or something like that, I was like, I'm going to read these books. And that was my act of kind of rebellion, was reading Harry Potter as a 15-year-old. And then I told my
Oh,
parents, hey,
wow.
just so you know, this book don't have anything bad in it. And then my parents were like, okay, no big deal. Like they weren't like committed to it ideologically so much. They were just told by sources they trusted that it was teaching kids witchcraft. And so, they just kind of believed that. Now my parents like Harry Potter. But that's also an interesting, like, there's a whole nother conversation to have about like media freakouts were often just like Xeroxes of Xeroxes because like no one actually looked at the media themselves in a type of way. But that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, that's my background with Harry Potter. So it was my act of rebellion. I greatly enjoyed it, had all the fun, and so I had my arc later and quicker than everyone else, I suppose. But Lenore, do you want to tell us about the woman behind the magic, who I was told growing up was a Satanist?
Yeah, and then she got better. Yeah, Joling Coling Rowling.
Rolling.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Don't look it up. Born July 31st, 1965 in Yates,
Wait, she
Gloucestershire.
gave Harry her birthday?
This is the interesting part, Aisha. Like I'm going back through this, researching this, and she has a real penchant for like mining her. All authors like write based on their experiences, of course, but like she really like mines for specific details her life, and lays them into her work in like really interesting and frequently, I think, allegorical ways. There's one in particular that stood out to me, but we can have the conversation.
You said I share your birthday with the specialist boy of all time.
Also, it's weird because like Hermione was her self-insert.
Well, of course, because she's so smart.
Naturally. So her parents, they were 19 when they met, and they were both in the Navy, and they dipped out to start a family. The family were big readers from a young age, particularly of Richard Scarry, of Kenneth Graham, specifically The Wind in the Willows. She was a Girl Guide from the age of 10, the British version of Girl Scouts. And from even before that, she was into writing. She'd written a couple of short stories by age 12, like you do. Her first was called Rabbit, which she wrote at age 6, and put a pin in that because that stood out to me. Now, when she was a teenager, this is crazy. Her great aunt gave her the book Huns and Rebels to read, and that's a memoir by the activist and journalist Jessica Mitford. Tangent, but this was wild to me. Mitford was a communist. She joined the Communist Party of the United States at one point. Her sisters Unity and Diana, both ardent fascists.
Huh.
And like not just like ardent fascists, they were right there in the middle of it. Diana married British fascist leader Oswald Mosley. Unity was best friends with Hitler.
I'm right in saying Huns and Rebels isn't Huns with a U, right? It's H-O-N-S, like honey or something?
That's correct, yes.
Interesting.
So Rowling picked the correct sister. She cited Jessica as one of her heroes. She read all her books. She named her first daughter after her, actually. Her teenage years kind of rough. Her mother came down with multiple sclerosis, had to quit her job. She didn't get along with her father, but her grades don't really suffer for it. She's a decent student. She's head girl at one point. Applies to Oxford, doesn't get in. Applies to Exeter and does. She studied French, and like many of us, she was more interested in her social life and in reading Tolkien than in her studies. Post-college, she moves to London. She gets by with temp jobs, including some translational work for Amnesty International, which she doesn't really find interesting. She pulls a George Saunders and writes on the clock.
Many, many, many such cases.
And many people are doing this.
I would never do such a thing.
No, never. Are you kidding
Only
me?
at every previous job I've ever had.
Almost the entirety of the first game I wrote was on little scraps of paper at my barista job.
Let's go. Do any of those scraps survive?
Possibly, quite possibly.
They're like on somebody's coffee cup somewhere. I used to write in the back at Domino's, and then once I got a text message from my manager who wasn't there, who was looking through the security cameras, and he texted me, "What you writing?"
Get out.
And I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That's so funny.
Anyway, he was a QAnon believer and was really upset that January 6th didn't work. But neither here nor there. Fuck you, Michael. I hope you don't run the Domino's.
Oh, Michael. Well, this is the episode that's going to change him. Now, 1990s where it all kicks off. She's on a train. There's a huge delay. Right there, supposedly, she comes up with Harry and Ron and Hermione. Now, while she's writing the book that would become Harry Potter, her mom dies later that year. She's had to move to Manchester. She's just had a breakup. There's a lot going on. She needs to start over. So, in the newspaper, she sees an advertisement for English teachers in Portugal, and that's where she goes. She moves to Porto. She teaches English at night, writes Harry Potter by day. 5 months into that, she meets a guy, Jorge Arantes. He's a journalist. He's supposedly handsome. And he's
a hot name, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly live up to it.
My bad.
he's a fellow fan of Jane Austen. That's how they hit it off. But it doesn't go well. Of course, all else aside about Rowling, like, Arantes is genuinely a piece of shit. Like, he's physically violent with her well before they're married. There's an interview with him in The Sun from, 2020 where he's like, yeah, I hit her, so what? Like,
Jesus. Okay, yeah. Redact the part where I said that's a hot name.
Yeah, no, she is a genuine victim of domestic abuse. Like, that's not something that's up for debate, for sure.
I didn't realize that. That's fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, no, she actually went into hiding for a couple of weeks, to get away from this guy. Like, it's pretty awful. The date of their wedding, incidentally, October 16th. That date appears in book 3. It is the day Professor Trelawney predicts the death of Lavender Brown's beloved pet rabbit.
What?
Oh wow!
Is she doing this so she can remember the dates?
I read it as she has, again, she puts all these very specific personal details in that map to similar emotional moments. I read this as sort of this guy killed my youthful idealism. It's interesting to see it pop up. So
very similar to how Tolkien intentionally made Bilbo and Frodo's birthday my birthday ahead of time. He was just kind of like, he knew September 22nd was going to matter. It
was going to pop off. He had insight.
Fireworks.
So she has a kid with him, her first daughter, Jessica, but by November of that year, she's done with him. Separates him, goes into hiding. They go back to Britain. They stay with her sister through Christmas. She gets a restraining order against him early the next year when he comes looking for her. By mid-95, their divorce goes through. They're done. Now, there's some myth-making around her poverty at this time. She wasn't homeless. She was able to feed herself and her kid consistently, but she did go through a period of, serious financial precarity, the crushing depression that brings. She's having a hard time finding work as a single mother of a very young child. Eventually, a friend of hers lends her some money to move into a slightly better flat. The summer that she divorces Arantes is when things start turning around for her. Another friend of hers helps her go back to school. She finds secretarial work. The month her divorce is finalized, she finishes the first draft of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
How old is she at this point?
She's 30 at this point.
Okay.
She sends it around to a dozen publishers. They all reject it, mostly because they think it's too long at around 90K words. She later cuts it down to 76,000.
I will say the book seems really fast at certain parts, so you can kind of not improperly fast, but I can see that there has been stuff cut from it, which is fine. A lot of books need fat cut from them, but
it really moves.
You can definitely see where the paragraphs get shorter, the timeline gets quicker. Of course, later in the series, that's not a problem.
I was going to say, she never has to cut a word after book 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah. Now, speaking of things she had to add, the head of Bloomsbury's children's book department says, look, we want to sell this thing to young boys. They'll never read a book by a girl, so maybe don't use your real name, right? As it happens, Rowling does not have a middle name. She picked the letter K based on this conversation. Now she is J.K. Rowling, which I understand stands for Jasper Rowling. Philosopher's Stone drops in 97. It's wildly successful. Scholastic picks up the American rights for $105,000. Drops a year later in America. New York Times bestseller by the end of the year. So by that time, Chambers out. Prisoner of Azkaban's next year. That same year, Warner Brothers buys the film rights to the first 2 books for $1 million. Goblet of Fire drops in 2000. First movie comes out in November 2001. And an 8-year-old Lenore Taylor Olson attended an advanced midnight screening. It was the greatest moment of her life up to that point. And from there, we know how successful this is. They've sold over 600 million copies in 80 languages, including the small, some of the really smaller ones like Basque, Greenlandic, Welsh.
Wow.
The first movie eventually made $1 billion. Daniel Radcliffe became the world's youngest millionaire at the time off of that. Rowling remarried in '01, had a couple more kids. She was named the first billionaire author by Forbes in '04. And this was part of her legend, right? You always heard this about her. She made $1 billion writing and then lost her billionaire status through charity and Britain's 45% top income tax rate. She is still one of the richest people in the United Kingdom, literally lives in a castle.
Wow. Yeah.
So a bit of a lull after Deathly Hallows drops in '07. Her first novel for adults is The Casual Vacancy in 2012. 2013, a novel called The Cuckoo's Calling is published. That's the first in the Cormoran Strike series by a guy named Robert Galbraith. That's Rowling. This is weird. She claims to have gotten the name from Robert F. Kennedy, not that one, and a pseudonym she invented for herself when she was much younger. Perhaps coincidentally, it's also the name of a guy who claimed to have succeeded at gay conversion therapy. Make of that what you will.
Oh, boy.
Because, yeah, in the late 2010s, of course, as we know, things start taking a turn. She is now most infamous online for her transphobia. It started in about 2019 when she liked a tweet calling trans women men in dresses. Her people called this a clumsy middle-aged moment. The previous week, though, people had reason to believe it was something else because she had supported publicly Maya Forstater, an anti-trans activist who rocketed to fame after her think tank contract wasn't renewed. This because she publicly asserted on socials that trans women are not women and doubled down when a coworker privately told her that this was a bad look. That case, Maya won that case. Now, like, gender critical quote unquote views are a protected class in Britain. You can't be fired based on them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, not pretty. She claims that her views stem from a desire to protect women from abusive and or delusional men. Of course, she herself has gone to bat for various abusers, including Greg Ellis and Johnny Depp. This was wild to me. Like, her post defending Johnny Depp's casting in Fantastic Beasts is still up on her site, completely unedited, despite everything that's come out.
Yeah. My favorite, one of my favorite stories about the Johnny Depp thing was when Mads Mikkelsen replaced him in the movies. A interviewer asked him, "Oh, have you talked to Johnny Depp about the role?" And Mads Mikkelsen was quoted saying, "I don't know that man."
Let's go. He strikes me as somebody who is just like deliberately not online.
Yeah. Yes.
No, 100%. That's a virtue these days.
Lenore, I'll also say, like, this same period, even leading up to this, like, even before she got politically, like, really, quite vile post-transphobia, like, really coming out, she was, like, on some, like, a weird beat. Like, when she was kind of trying to, I think, match the tenor of what her kind of online fan base was like, she sort of had this progressive leaning thing about, like, LGBT rights and whatnot, but she did it in a very strange way. Like, for example, trying to make, like, retroactively Lupin be a metaphor for AIDS, which was apparently supposed to be a positive thing, even though that's obviously not great. I won't say that she didn't see Dumbledore as gay, but, like, she clearly didn't make him gay, like, completely in the book. There is some implication there.
He is pretty fruity. Like,
oh yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, it's not something it's something that she doesn't state in the book that she felt more comfortable stating after the book's success. Things like that. And then also just some general weirdness with, like, Pottermore and just, like, random lore she would throw out, and just, the whole thing became a rickety scaffolding at a certain point.
Mm-hmm. I do think the plot of Deathly Hallows doesn't hold together unless Dumbledore was in love with Grindelwald.
Sure.
So after that trivia came out, I was like, okay, I buy it. I buy that you were thinking about this and then just didn't.
Yeah. I've read as well that that thinking also influenced, like, notes that she gave on the scripts for the film. Like, she's like, hey, Dumbledore wouldn't give Harry advice about picking up girls. And we can talk about, like, she stuck to her guns, at least behind the scenes. And that's the one thing that I believe that, like, she's retroactively, the one thing that she retroactively established that I believe is Dumbledore.
Sure. I'm just saying that it was a kind of thing where she had up until certain recent times kind of tried to play it safe politically on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, kind of release stuff as it was, politically feasible or, like, cogent for her. Now she's at a place where literally, like, on Twitter, she's quoting someone who has a sign that says love is love. And she said, if this was on my street, I would drive an hour out of my way not to pass by this on my way to work. Just stuff like that. Like, she's just, like, angry at a level that is hard to explain now.
I do kind of think that she's always sort of hated how gay her fan base is. Like, I think that she's always really disliked all the porno, all the gay porno. Like the most popular ship is Drary, the Draco Harry ship, of course, because obviously. And I
That's basically canon in the book. That's her.
I know. I at least like Draco seems extremely obsessed with Harry in like a very young gay way. But also, I honestly like I will go to my grave believing that the Tonks Remus thing is literally because she was so mad that everybody was so convinced Remus and Sirius were in love.
Mm-hmm.
I literally think that she's like, oh look, no, he's got this lesbian girlfriend.
As if the gayest thing you can do in Britain is to be like a gentleman with a lesbian wife.
I know.
Like, that's actually gayer. So, shooting herself in the foot there.
Tonks and Lupin coming up to you in a pub. We really like your vibe.
The fucking mustache? Come on.
100%.
Seriously. I'm not saying Sirius was a gay before Azkaban, but afterwards, he absolutely.
Gay icon. I mean, he's Gary Oldman. Listen.
All the Marauders explored each other at some point.
For sure.
Mm. Yeah, it's the
70s.
It's bizarre to me how openly petty that she's gotten. Like even leaving aside all her transphobia, I mean, she's opened a women's shelter that excludes trans women. Like, she's got really weird takes about how, like, I'm not a TERF because my feminism includes trans men who were born women. And it's like, I got news for you, trans men are men. But like,
Girl.
yeah. But like, she will also just do like the most bizarre high school shit on Twitter. Like, I'm sure y'all saw the other day, she retweeted that one engagement post that's like, oh, what actors instantly ruin a movie for you? And she said 3 guesses.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, I'm so happy. I'm like, good for Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint. Like, TBH, like, good for them. We stand.
Yeah, it's so strange. And it's also like, I mean, you can say this about almost any rich person, but especially a person who got rich off a book series, which is, one of probably the most ethical ways to get rich, even though there's obviously exploitation up and down the labor chain. Just shut the fuck up and everyone will like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we would all have a pretty positive opinion of her, I think. If relatively at least, I probably wouldn't give it a lot of thought. But like, if she had just shut the fuck up.
Drop book 7, log off, you're done.
Yeah, go buy an island.
Do anything. And I mean, obviously that goes for pretty much any rich person too. Like, the same way that like Elon Musk, no one would think about him if he didn't like push himself into all our lives. But like, at least, but for her, it was the opposite. It wasn't just that we wouldn't think about her. It's that she had an active goodwill for making this thing that a largely queer fan base really loved. I mean, a lot of people loved it. It's Harry Potter, but like a very, progressive, young, Tumblrized fan base. And just that it was her and that she specifically chose to do that. I don't know. It's incredibly spiteful and petty, but it's also just bizarre that you would make that choice. And that like pretty much anything you do is going to be marred by that from here on out. And because like, of course, like art, you can enjoy art without loving the author. It's impossible not to sometimes. But at the same time, like, because this was a thing that was so cherished by a lot of like queer young people, like literally having a character, come out of the closet as like a central thing, kind of, not literally, but like a literal, broom closet under the stairs. And that was so serious and important for people. It's just very frustrating. And like, it really mars a lot of what could still be, a thing with a lot of goodwill.
I mean, I am glad there is still a relatively thriving Harry Potter fandom that is pretty divorced from her. Like, it's all just like, those boys sucking and fucking each other, which good on them. I'm so happy for them.
It's one way that she, of course we have the bigotry angle, but like that's another like Lovecraft-esque thing about her, right? Is that what she's built, people have just taken and run with. Like, even before like she had her like really reactionary turn, people, Slytherin really stands out to me in particular on this front, because like I know people who self-ID'd as Slytherin, and explicitly, oh yeah, exactly,
yeah.
Because it's like
I'm a millennial. I talked about my Hogwarts house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like ambition, like loyalty to your circle, like, there's so much more interesting going on than it just being the blood purity house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people have definitely humanized the Slytherins in a lot of ways. And like, I think my sister wrote like a essay about Drarry, like for some publication a while ago about like why she likes it.
Does that survive? Can we put it in the show notes?
I'll have to ask her.
That would be, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, just, it's fascinating. And like what it's become, is going to be beyond her, of course. And what it's inspired, and it's inspired by other things. I'll say, just putting it out there, I said it in our Percy Jackson episode, I still think Percy Jackson's the GOAT YA series. I say why on our Percy Jackson the Olympians episode. At least Rick Riordan has taken a very different direction. But I'll even say though, like, that series and its success in a lot of like the DNA there does come from Harry Potter. There are a lot of books, good and bad, that the DNA comes from Harry Potter. There's a lot of inspiration.
Harry Potter got a lot of kids reading.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Harry Potter has done a lot of good in the world. Honestly,
yeah, it gave us some actors who were genuinely very like good and like,
extremely good
and really cool shit.
And it's like launched a lot of people's careers. Like and I told you this earlier today, Jacob, but like the audio drama that I wrote with my co-writer, like she used to run a Harry Potter podcast, and we used the money she made from that to make our like gay space show.
There we go.
Yeah, it's also just like, I mean, we've talked about Tamsin Muir of Gideon the Ninth. She cited Harry Potter fan fiction as something that was fundamental for her. I guarantee you, it probably, I mean, any author that like grew up in that age range of 90s to 2010 is gonna be influenced by this thing.
Right.
And I mean, like, even the movies, I've got like, as they go on, I've got some criticisms of them, but like, holy cow, like that score and like just
the casting
what's going on there. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of fun stuff. Like, this is
Alan Rickman.
Yes, Alan Rickman. And this is something, so this is like something I wanted to say is like, I don't want to like kind of come on here and be like, this was always bad. Now, we will in a few weeks do a Cursed Child episode, and then I will have some more significant criticisms. And I do have criticisms of Harry Potter as a series. We will talk about it probably next episode, but the House Elves, holy shit. But in this book specifically, I don't actually have a lot of hate for it. I do want to get into why it works and why people loved it. But yeah.
Are we going to go through it like we do most books on this?
Yeah, we'll
okay. All right, yeah, because I'm like, everybody knows this book, but I guess there's people who haven't read it.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's been a minute for a lot of people, I read the opening of this book, about it's a perfectly normal family, and it's a great start. And you're talking about, Mr. Dursley, and they would never do anything un-Dursley-ish. And honestly, it borrows very heavily from The Hobbit here, especially when I read un-Dursley-ish. That's like very much like un-Baggins-ly, but you have got the Took side of the family. There is a very, Took and Baggins thing going on here with this very boring suburbanite 90s family, the Dursley.
There's a very engaging rhythm to her prose.
Yes.
It moves at the speed of audience thought.
Yes. There's a very engaging rhythm to her prose. It really moves. She has a talent for a turn of phrase that is just odd enough to make it stick in your brain or make you go, huh, that sensible chuckle kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Though, I mean, and it hits you immediately though, that there is a deep, deep core of nastiness in her writing. There is a deeply mean, like, cast, especially the way that she describes the Dursleys.
Mrs. Dursley really like gets it.
Yeah, and her fat phobia,
her long neck and beady eyes.
Oh God, yeah.
And she's like so disgusted by fat people. Yes. And it's obvious immediately, and it's like very alarming. Even at the time, I feel like it was kind of unusual.
10 years ago, there have been lots of pictures of what looked like a large pink beach ball wearing different colored bonnets, but Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby.
Right, like Dudley is like posed as like, I mean, he's a little jerk because he was raised by these horrible parents, but he is like posed as like pure evil, mostly because he's fat, which is so weird. And like they're very unpleasant people, and they do like abuse Harry. Like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, they very much did abuse Harry Potter.
Yeah, I don't even want to say to a comical degree, but it's absurd.
Yeah, it's not Dudley's fault. Like, they abuse him too.
And I will say, like, when I think about like these parts, you know, all that to say, the casting of these characters is so good in the movie. Not that we're necessarily talking about the movie, but like this is something that like makes the series work so well. Is like if you read the books along with the movies, as a lot of people did, it's so successful here. But yeah, no, there is like an anger towards these people, but some of it's interesting, right? Because this is aimed at a type of young person who is old enough now to be reading a full book, however old that is for the person, it depends. Who, you know, you have a childhood where everything, you know, and this is kind of part of my thesis of why these books are successful. In childhood, like very young childhood, pretty much everything is magic, right? You can imagine, you know, fairies and goblins and whatever around every corner. And you hit a certain age, you know, in, you know, your tweens or whatever, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe not even till then, maybe when you're 13, where you're suddenly like, wait, the world is fucking boring and it sucks. And then you have your like edgy phase that is like not entirely unwarranted, but if, you know, driven a little bit by hormones. And at a certain point, at least a lot of us get to a point where then when we like leave that phase, the world becomes like really big and scary, but like amazing in certain ways again, or at least unexpected. Like for me now, when I look at the world and the bigness of it, as horrifying as it is, there is like so much unexpected that it might as well be magic. You know, like it might as well be mystical, like arcane or whatever. So you like go, and this is like a book almost written for that middle phase, like the kid that has become on the cusp of becoming disenchanted, that doesn't actually believe in magic anymore, but they can be like, wow, my life sucks in this suburb. My dad has a boring job. He sells fucking drill bits. My cousin or my brother sucks. He's just like Dudley. And wouldn't it be awesome if I was like the special boy? Right? And that's like part of what makes like the sauce of this work so well.
I'd also argue that the meanness is also one of the things that is appealing about it when you're a kid.
Well, it's funny.
Because you're used to being told, yeah, it's funny. You're used to being told that, like, you're used to be giving stuff that's, like, nice.
Sure.
Like, you know, people want you to read nice stuff. And there's just, like, a biting awfulness to, like, and I think a lot of it is, like, Harry is also, like, kind of, like, a nasty person because he was raised by these nasty people to be very judgmental. And there's, like, a sort of fun underdog meanness to Harry that like you're rooting for him because he's like a poor abused kid who is always being set upon by like werewolves and shit, and in his head he's being a huge cunt, and that's fun. Like Harry is cunt sometimes. Like,
especially in the we're talking book 5 next week, and so I've gotten a head start on that. Especially in the first chapter of that, he gets in some really like biting stuff on Dudley. But like even in book 1, like he's always one step ahead of him.
Well, it's like, what if you could unleash a snake on your horrible cousin, but it was like morally justified? You know, like what if you could, you know, do this, that, and the other, and like you were the good guy for doing it. And then like you have at the beginning of this book, though, this magical figure of Dumbledore standing outside observing, and he says, because they're talking about why would you give him to this family, and he says, you know, it would be enough to turn any boy's head, Harry's fame, before he can walk and talk, famous for something he won't even remember. Can you see how much better he'll be growing up away from all that until he's ready to take it? So there's almost this idea of like, I mean, you know, when will my Hogwarts letter come? I am like this kind of, you are kind of able to imagine yourself as separate from the world. Not like, you know, I'm not criticizing it as like immoral or anything, but that is like kind of a appeal to it. I would say almost like that is partially like why a lot of people even into adulthood really cling on to the series in a lot of ways. But
well, everybody feels, you know, everybody at that age feels like an alien, or feels like that that they're a wizard who doesn't belong or whatever. Like it's just such a normal. I think that there's so many things about Harry Potter that are just so universal, at least to like white Western culture.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the setup is good. Dumbledore is a fun character. Actually, I think that Dumbledore is the most interesting character in the story because he's like the
Yes.
one like morally gray character, I think, because he is like a good guy who sucks.
The way he's characterized in this scene is something I want to point up. Like that, we have that juxtaposition in chapter 1 of McGonagall saying Dumbledore is the only person Voldemort ever feared, right? And then what's the next thing they talk about? Dumbledore blushing when somebody compliments his earmuffs, right? And that's Dumbledore in a nutshell, right? He likes Muggle treats, yet he's unafraid to speak Voldemort's name, right? He's cold, hard steel in a whimsical velvet glove, and I love that about him.
That is true. And to be clear, for those who have lived under a rock, Voldemort is an evil wizard that just fucking died or vanished, and it had something to do with the fact that when he killed Harry Potter's parents as a baby, he failed to kill Harry Potter. Now we know why this was. Now that we've read the series, it's the power of love. Don't ask too many questions about it. It never fully makes sense, even to me, and I've read these books twice. But the power of love protected Harry. It explains it in a little more detail later on.
It explains it in nauseating detail in book 7.
Yeah, but I still don't get it. Like, I frankly don't. But, it is what it is. But Harry grows up with these awful, normal people, and they take it out on him. They make him sleep in a cupboard under the stairs. They don't feed him enough. They treat him like shit.
It's interesting. I know in the fandom, a very popular portrayal of Harry is as mixed race. As making his dad brown or black or something, because the way that they talk about Harry and the way they talk about his family is very racialized. Like how, their sister running around with that kind of guy. So it makes sense to me that the fandom picks up on that and makes Harry, like, you see him like Southeast Asian a lot or something like that. I don't think she like ever intended that. Like, he's definitely white. But like the way, like, I don't think it's a mistake about the way that they talk about him is like a way you talk about your sister's mixed child.
Well, any day now, she's going to come out on Twitter and say, "Oh yeah, James Potter was Thai."
Oh my God.
But no, like this carries through to Wizard Society as well. Like, the whole edifice is very, very steeped in this obsession with blood and with race and with species. Like, you can't throw a rock in this series without hitting some statement that's like, oh, like they're a big galoot. They must have giant blood somewhere, right?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it plays both sides, where that is bad, but also it's real. It's like this whole thing is very much like, well, anyone can be a great wizard. You can come from a Muggle family and be a great wizard, whatever. But on the other, and the people who are like the great wizarding houses should be all powerful. They're bad. They're the fascist wizards. But at the same time, like, Harry is good at everything because his parents were the best wizards, right?
Right. And Gryffindor makes you good and Slytherin makes you evil. Like, it's very liberal.
Right. Like, there is some of that.
It's very
right?
liberal.
Like, magic does pass down, through genes. It doesn't exclusively pass down through genes. So it is kind of like, it is weird how it plays both sides. And it doesn't get fully into this, except just Draco occasionally throwing out like a shitty snide comment in this book that he heard from his dad.
Right. They don't even really talk about like pure bloods yet. That's in the next book, I think, is when
they throw out mud blood in the next book.
Yeah.
Mudbloods and murmurs, yeah.
Yeah, Draco is just a little bitch in this one.
Fun fact, at high school, one of my friends once used the word mudblood, and a girl in the class that was way too on Tumblr, yelled at him and said it was the equivalent of a real world racial slur, and I thought that was the funniest thing.
Oh, dear.
Doofa.
Which is funny because we weren't even supposed to be talking about Harry Potter in the first place at this Christian high school. So like the level of like layers that's going on in this conversation is hilarious.
Not in my Christian Minecraft server.
I do like the section where Harry like gossips with the snake, where he's my family sucks, and the snake's like, well, I don't know my family. I'm from Brazil or something like that. That's cute. I really like the letter sequence. I think it's fun.
Yeah. Does anyone have any good quotes from that y'all can read?
Let me see. Harry dodged the smelting stick. Smelting is Dudley's like new private school or whatever. He gets a like cane to whack people with.
That was the smelting stick.
I love the image of Dudley in his gay little waistcoat with his stick and his hat.
And his father's like, smack him with your melting stick, boy. I love that.
It is very funny. There's like, I do wonder about some of Dudley's experience because like we'll talk about it next week, but there's a really visceral like Dementor attack. You had to relive your worst memory, and like Dudley, gets hit with that. One wonders what he went through at this all boys boarding school.
Yeah, justice for Dudley, TBH.
Yeah.
Lenore, as we know from both the Tolkien and C.S. Lewis episode, British boarding schools only end like in good things. They improve you. They make you a good person all around. It doesn't do anything crazy to you.
Yeah, they turn you into an Edmund.
Well, you get Turkish delight out of it, so who can really say if it's bad or good?
Turkish delight sucks. It tastes like ass.
But yeah, no, like the three things laying on the doormat: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who is vacationing on the Isle of Wight.
Marge Simpson is canonically related.
I just think the Isle of Wight's neat.
Could you imagine? Sorry, I'm completely derailing the quote I asked you to read, but I'm imagining the Simpsons exist in this universe.
Dude, the Simpsons and the Dursleys being related, like somebody has to have written that crossover.
I guarantee you it has. I'll look into it while you read this quote.
A brown envelope that looked like a bill and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic band. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives. He didn't belong to the library, so he'd never even got rude notes asking for books back. Yet here it was, a letter, addressed so plainly there could be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, The Cupboard Under the Stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. And so it goes on to describe this letter, and like, of course, Vernon chotches it right away. But then, like, more letters come, and like they get more specific as they move Harry through the house. Like the smallest bedroom it's addressed to. Like they get letters addressed to the specific.
Right, they move him into the bedroom because they're like, oh no, the wizards are watching us, and they know that we're abusing this boy by making him sleep in the cupboard under the stairs.
That is true. Like, they know exactly where they put this kid. Surely the wizard making the cupboard under the stairs letter can put 2 and 2 together.
I mean, Dumbledore let him fucking stay here for years while he was being abused because it was good. Because, like, I mean, I'm sure you guys will talk about this later.
Do we know why they kept this kid here? Is it because of the love magic?
No, there's some piece of there's like an enchantment on Harry that he's safe from Voldemort as long as he returns to his relatives every year or something. But I think also Dumbledore just like, I don't know, I think that he was trying to forge him in fire. Like he was making his perfect little weapon.
I mean, if Harry had been raised by like, I don't know, who would he have been raised? Like, Sirius Black? Yeah. He would have like shown up to Hogwarts on like a fucking motorcycle. That's a whole different series right here.
Black, who is name dropped in this first chapter.
Yeah, right. Young Sirius. Yeah. Young but Master also, Sirius.
I think to a certain extent, like, Harry would have been way more of a douchebag if he'd been grown up knowing he was famous. I agree with that. However, I think he would be a lot harder to manipulate the way that Dumbledore, because like he's so grateful to Dumbledore. He loves Dumbledore. He trusts him completely. And it's because Dumbledore completely isolated him from everybody. Like, Dumbledore sucks.
I fully believe, and this is something that I think I might have even said on our episode, that Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the first book, that Percy having a bad home life with his stepdad being because his stepdad had a bad smell that drove away monsters is Rick Riordan's like second take on this specific explanation. And he like literally read this book and came up with a better reason. I genuinely think that because it's similar enough and makes slightly more sense that, I mean, it's stupid, but it makes more sense. I think it's his take on it.
I like this. I like the fact that like Dumbledore keeps him here to manipulate him.
I wish it was that and not the love thing.
No, I think it is though. Like I think that that's implied. Like I think that it was intended.
You do you think that actually I'm interested in this. Do you think she sees Dumbledore as morally gray as he like comes across, or is that like
I do think she sees him as morally gray, maybe not as morally gray as he comes across. The way that he's portrayed, I think, in the seventh book as like somebody who worked with Grindelwald. I think that it is acknowledged that he is a morally gray character, and I think he admits to making mistakes to Harry. And I think that Harry does get angry with him in the seventh book. I haven't read the seventh book as much as I've read all of the rest, just because it's, you know, the most recent. But I do think some moral grayness was intended.
He does run a school where you are like, I imagine if it was realistic, there would be like a 70% death rate before graduation.
Yeah. He certainly started out as like, because Grindelwald, of course, went on to become like the like Wizard Hitler analog, even within the text of the books. But like, at least initially, Dumbledore's with him because he's got this kind of like effective altruism thing going on, where like, look, I'll do this and it'll be justified because I can lead humanity into this next stage or whatever.
Right. Also, I think he was in love with him.
There is that.
Yeah.
100%.
Like when your boyfriend becomes Hitler or whatever. But yeah, okay, so no, you're right though. Like maybe it was not intentionally like Dumbledore keeps him here to isolate him. But yeah, the idea of like he has to return, Dumbledore definitely knows what's happening to him here.
Sure, that's true. And I also think it is more like, obviously, he has to be raised in a shitty, normal background for everything amazing to make sense, right?
Right.
Because just like, and I've talked about this phenomenon before, just like in Lord of the Rings, Tolkien does the effective world building of, because hobbits don't know anything, you can have the characters explain the world to them. Harry Potter, in the same way, is the reader in
He's the audience stand-in,
his questions are your questions, and then when you don't get them answered, he's also not getting them answered, which is of course a very effective way to write a fantasy novel in general, and it's a reason we all do it.
And there's little bits of world building, quite apart, quite distinct from the shit that like Rowling puts out on Twitter about wizards shitting themselves where they stand or whatever. Like,
no, that's good actually.
The little that's actually the best.
To that. More
if she had just done that,
yeah,
I agree. If she had just done that, we would all be like, she's so weird. We love her.
Write us a short story about Mimbulus Chamberpot or whoever invents like toilets in the wizarding world and double down, and then like we'll forgive you. But like fucking like the little bits of wizard politics and history that she like drips to us are really fun to me, because when the letter finally does get open, right, you see Dumbledore's header on the stationery, and he's identified as basically Secretary General of the United Nations. He's the supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, and you're like, wow, wait, what's that? You know?
Yeah, is that above or before like President of the Communist Party, General Secretary of the Soviet Union? Like, where does he fall in on all that?
Well, of course, being Supreme Mugwump means he's the leader of the faction of Republicans that supported Democrat Grover Cleveland for president in 1884.
Got it. Makes sense. I knew that was something.
But the more common definition is someone who rejects partisanship, right? And there you see Rowling's penchant for... She uses these archaic or uncommon words that in the wizarding world are in common use, and like, of course, she didn't invent this fantasy trope, but it's probably best known through her, and it stands out in, really effective relief to the aggressively mundane world of the Dursleys.
So then, Hagrid rolls up. Great boy. He's too big to be allowed, which is one of my all-time favorite descriptions of a character. He's too big to be allowed. He rolls up.
A lot of class coding with Hagrid.
Yeah, he's got this sort of rustic accent. He's hairy. He's got a big old jacket with like birds in it and shit. And he's just like, here's some cake.
Like your crunchy uncle. Yeah.
I will say I was shocked to read this, and he says, "Harry, you're a wizard." That completely threw me
You're
off.
a wizard, Harry. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't matter, but like, just that like line is ingrained in my head from the movie. Which the
guy who plays him in the movie is also very good. The movie's very well cast.
Oh yeah, that's one thing they don't fail at. But yeah, he takes him from his family. We have this great moment of catharsis where he like takes the gun from Mr. Dursley and bends it into a knot, and he like owns them.
And then mutilates Dudley.
Yeah, he makes Dudley grow a tail, which has to be surgically removed, which is funny, but also holy shit.
Can I please talk about that for a second? It's like one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah,
because I I understand with like the they have the letters addressed to him going like specifically to the room in the house. Maybe they know exactly what's going on with Harry. Maybe those were just magical letters that follow him around. I like to subscribe to the idea that Hagrid did not know this child, that he just showed up and was like, "Who's this little shit?" and just permanently disfigures a child.
Oh, I 100% think that's true. Like,
Oh, yeah.
This is the type of man to just keep a dragon in his wooden house. So,
Well,
like, you know.
but like you zoom out and like that's it's not just a Hagrid thing, right? There is a very cavalier attitude that wizards have about using magic on muggles, right? You know, when Hagrid curses Dudley like that, he says, "Hey, don't tell anybody," not on the grounds that he shouldn't be cursing muggles, but on the grounds that he's not supposed to be practicing magic.
well, casual violence is quite normalized in the wizarding world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because like Quidditch is really violent. People get hurt and killed all the time. Like the Forbidden Forest is full of like things that'll eat you. So like I think it's quite a brutal society, honestly.
Well, it's like Hogwarts doesn't have magic post like what, like 1800, maybe even earlier. So it's like got a very medieval mindset to like how they function. Like Filch implies they only very just recently got rid of the policy of hanging children up by chains, but from their wrists, like in his lifetime, as punishment. So like everything goes. It's 1500s rules.
There's no like actual corporal punishment until Umbridge, and she's
Yeah.
not she's bad or whatever. She's the bad kind of teacher, even though like whatever. But they do like for detention they get brought into the evil murder forest.
And they're
So,
like, something is murdering the purest beings of all time,
Yeah.
which means you have nothing left to lose.
Go fight them, 11-year-olds.
Yeah, they're with Hagrid. They're okay.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, they're saved by like a hot centaur named Firenze.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I have feelings about that, but doesn't matter.
Whatever.
But to take it back to the plot where we were, to moving forward through it, Diagon Alley is next, which is, they step into the wizarding world, which very effectively is just between the cracks of our worlds. In the same way, there's platform 9 3/4, which is just between 9 and 10. If you just look close enough, you have the magic, you can really see through the veil and see this world that's right there.
There's a plaque at King's Cross.
Yes, it's lovely. You have like I'll read this like as they're going towards Diagon Alley. So Hagrid and Harry are walking, and it says they passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants and cinemas, but nowhere that looked like it could sell you a magic wand. This was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spell books and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. So, two things. One, Harry has immediately become dependent on the first, like, slightly nice adult that he's come across, despite that adult's clear incompetency. But secondly, yeah, it's this like everything could have magic behind it. Look at this world that's so boring to you as like an 11-year-old or whatever. Now that you're realizing the world actually isn't magic, and think about what could be just behind it. And for me, like that's a very effective thing. Well, I didn't read this book at that age. The kind of books that were like that, like Danita K. Paul's books, which were Christian books that very clearly were meant to like, hey, give your kid this instead of Harry Potter. Maybe we'll have to talk about those at some point. Did that for me in a very effective way. And I imagine that was the case for like children this age reading Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Definitely for me.
For sure. And she's also, it's whimsical and it's exciting. And it's also like looking back on it, like when you read through the rest of the books and you see what the wizarding world became, right? It's interesting to see her like playing around with the popular conception of witchcraft before she's really developed the magical world as its own distinct culture or set of cultures, right? Because you see this in the list of school supplies, right? The uniform is robes and pointy hats. You're allowed a familiar like a cat or an owl or a toad, and the owl is the only one with any sort of utility, right? Witchcraft is still very much an aesthetic here. But one thing that does stick is her naming conventions, right? It's very Star Wars. It's very consciously archaic, very nominally determinative, right? You got like the herbology book by Phillida Spore. You got Fantastic Beasts by Newt Scamander.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I usually like those until they get to racialized characters like Kingsley Shacklebolt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then you have the Asian girl who goes to Hogwarts.
Yeah, there are downsides, but for the most part, it's charming when it's describing just like random.
You mean and Remus Lupin, the werewolf whose name is Wolf? Like
he's just a guy. He's just Remus Lupin, and here you have going forward into Diagon Alley, all these fun little things. The place where there's all the gold. You know, it turns out Harry's rich, so that's awesome. What if you?
Yeah, he does the Conrad Stargard thing where he immediately comes across a pile of gold.
Right. Yeah. It's what if your parents were actually cool, they were badass, you were badass, and you were rich. And everyone loves you. But then like also, you know, it's got the kind of thing that is like perfect for someone at that age, like kind of finding like this identity thing. Kind of the similar way that I said, like Percy Jackson for me, I was so excited, like who's your godparent? In this case, obviously you'll have houses, but you also have, well, which animal would you pick as your little animal? Would it be a toad? Would it be an owl? Would it be a cat? Owl obviously being the superior choice here because it can fucking fly and deliver mail.
I don't care. I'm definitely a cat.
Fair enough.
I do like that Hermione gets a deeply ugly, fucked up cat that she's obsessed with. I'm like, girl, same.
That is real. You know, what if there was, and then Ron has like a grown man rat. Grown ass
just a guy you keep around.
A grown man who's been sleeping with him for years.
You've got incredible. What else do you have? You have broomsticks. What are your broomsticks like? You have, what is your wand? What kind of core does it have? You know, what kind of wood?
The money that she comes up with is probably the most obscure joke in the series, at least in this book.
Wait, explain. I don't get it.
So, like, there's 17 sickles to a galleon and 29 nuts to a sickle. And this I read as, like, a joke on how complicated British money used to be before it was decimalized. Like, 100 pence to the pound didn't happen until, like, 71, right? Before that, it was 12 pence to the shilling, 20 shillings to the pound.
Well, if the Wizarding World's behind by a couple centuries, I suppose that would make sense.
It's very parochial like that.
Right. And then we meet Draco here, but we don't know his name. He's just some little dipshit in a robe store.
Little queeny little guy.
Some kid who's like,
he is quite queeny.
And he's just openly like, yeah, I don't think we should let people with Muggle blood into Hogwarts. What do you think?
Right. But he's also 11, so he's just repeating stuff he's heard his parents say.
This is true.
Like, so that's like another thing that annoys me with Draco is like, oh, he's so evil. I'm like, he's 12. He just sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his dad is the one that's really evil, even though he's also gay and hot.
Yeah, his dad's real hot in the movie.
It's kind
his
of
dad
crazy.
is fucking Elven King Frandul.
Yeah, it's really stupid. Anyway.
I saw these movies around the same time I saw The Patriot, and he plays like the comically evil British colonel in The Patriot that like burns Americans to death for fun because he wants to become king of Ohio. That's an insane movie.
That
and I just associate
critical support.
Yeah, correct decision in hindsight.
Yeah, and then the scene with Ollivander with the wand, and we get like his first like he gets like the wand that is connected to Voldemort. Which is like he starts having so much synergy with Voldemort.
Synergy,
besties.
No, it's. Do you think like she figured out the whole wand lore thing like at this point, or was she just like I'll come back to it later?
Absolutely not.
No, yeah,
and that's fine.
That's fine. Like so. I know a lot of people hate Book 7 and think it's stupid. I actually like Book 7, and a lot of the stuff that bothers most people about it actually doesn't bother me. Even if you can tell she made a lot of it up at the end, I think she ties it in pretty well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think the Elder Wand thing is a little stupid. But like The Horcruxes don't bother me. I kind of like the Horcruxes, but the Elder Wand thing, I think, felt like a hat on a hat. I don't think that she needed to do it.
There's a lot of stuff that definitely, like, she drops in the first few books, and then without consciously, I think, knowing what she wants to do with it, she comes back to it and is like, oh, by the way, this means that, this means that. Like, we get all the lore about the fucking Hogwarts ghosts in book 7.
Yeah.
Well, I think what is kind of, happening here, I agree with you, Aisha, about that side of it. I think book 7 is bloated in a way that is not very fun, but that's the last few books. That's just because she was a god at that point that couldn't be touched by any editor.
Right. They need to be edited. Yeah.
But on the lore side of things, I'm not super typically worried about oh, the lore is inconsistent. Oh, well, only this many kids go to Hogwarts and there's this pop. I'm not that worried about it. Now, it can be funny sometimes when she tries to scale up the wizarding world to geopolitics, and there's one wizarding school for India, Asia, and Korea, or India, China, and Korea, and most of South Asia. But and there's some stuff there, but I will say most of the lore inconsistencies don't super bother me.
Yeah, the lore shouldn't have to hold up beyond the bounds of the story. That's why Pottermore was so ill-conceived.
That's the problem, is that they did Pottermore, right? The problem is that they tried to build this lore and turn it into a Tolkien-esque
They should have done Potter less.
Yeah, for real. That's what I'm saying. I think all right, ladies.
The challenge with it is she wrote this book, obviously knowing she would write more books, but not knowing the scale of what this thing would become. And then you're inundated all of a sudden with all these questions about the world and all this obsession, and now movies, and everyone wants to know everything. And you're engaging with your audience, for the first time online, as in the late 90s, suddenly that becomes possible, early 2000s. And we know she's a deeply online person, even pretty early on in forums and stuff. And so all of a sudden you feel this pressure as an author to build and expand, all while the constraints that you're having put on you in the first book, like having to cut 11,000 words, are being taken away. And it is going to lead to some of this sort of inevitable lore absurdity. And the problem is not the lore. The problem is that they did shit like Pottermore and whatnot. In my opinion.
It takes, I think you have to have the confidence in your world to just tell people, I don't know, figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The classic fake, it's not real, but the fake Tolkien audio clip where he says, someone asks him about the eagle, and he said, I tell them what I always tell them. Shut up.
Or David Lynch being like, the movie is the talking.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's just like that, and it's a kid's story, and get over
it. It's a kid's story with some decidedly adult rivalries and personal peccadillos pulling the strings here. I love this is jumping ahead, but I love McGonagall making Harry the Gryffindor Seeker specifically because she wants to get one over on Snape, right?
Yeah.
And that's at Hogwarts. We can jump into Hogwarts because he gets on platform 9 3/4. He meets Ron Weasley, the best friend character. He meets Hermione, the nerd. Supposedly J.K. Rowling self-insert. I've heard. I'm not sure exactly to what extent.
I love Hermione. She
lovely.
Sucks. She's such a little I don't know. Hermione, we stan.
No, this is the way I behaved at that age. It is absolutely the way I behaved. I was so fucking annoying about school. I had just gotten dropped into school because I was homeschooled until about that age, and I was absolutely the kid. It was like, "Where's the homework?" That was me. I won't even front.
Yeah, I think that, and Emma Watson is so great as her. I'm Hermione Granger. Those kids, they're very good for child actors.
No
doubt. They're really killing it.
And you have, on the train to Hogwarts, this exposure to the casualness of the wizard world that makes this very effective. You have trading cards with little guys that move around, and, you have funny lines, the humor works because it's he's like, where did the picture go? And Ron's like, well, you can't expect him to stick around all day. Little bits of humor that work very well. You have the chocolate frogs. You have the every flavored jelly beans. It's these little bits of this and that make, you have the Weasley twins being little dorks. You have all this working in a very effective way, building a world that feels quite real. So we're on the train to Hogwarts. We get to Hogwarts, and everybody wants to go to Hogwarts. This is the coolest place ever. It's a fucking giant castle on a hill. You got the lake, you got the candles in the dining room. You've got even before you've seen the movie,
the ceiling that reflects the night sky, which I love.
Even before you see the movie, you can hear that music just reading this, just the it works. It's like you feel just the presence of this place. It works so effectively. And Harry is, of course, incredibly nervous because they are about to be sorted into houses. And you're like, what are houses, Jacob? Well, I'll tell you from the Sorting Hat himself. He is a sentient hat. He talks to you. And here is what he has to say with his special little song. I have no idea what the tune is, but I'll see if I can find it on the way. Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you can see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts Sorting Hat and I can cap them all. There's nothing in your head the Sorting Hat can't see. So try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. This is a very long song. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin, you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap.
I love that this guy is like, yo, Slytherin, that's the evil house.
It is. It's the evil house. Per her book, pretty much. Not a single dark wizard wasn't in Slytherin, apparently.
Slytherin sounds like it sounds fun.
They're the only ones who lose their virginity before college.
I know. You know they fucking party. You know they smoke weed.
Mm-hmm. There is something to Hufflepuffs being like the extra house. I mean, we've seen it in fucking Harry Potter musical and whatnot. Like
what about Puffs?
That's we may have
that may come up in a few episodes.
It may come up in conversation, yes. But yeah, it's you read this and you're like, okay, like there's kind of a hierarchy here. Like there's Gryffindor and then there's Slytherin, and of course Slytherin is cooler.
And wins more often, it seems, according to...
I tell you what, I could not help but notice that the first Gryffindor-Slytherin Quidditch game, like, the score is 170-60 at the end. And, like, first of all, like, spread betting in Quidditch must be insane. But, like, second of all, like, fucking Slytherin clearly has the better quaffle game than Gryffindor.
Well,
oh, yeah.
You say that, but their scorer scored 5 goals while everyone was looking at Harry, it says. It throws that out there. So he was kind of cheating, low key. But like, what do you expect a Slytherin to do?
Yeah, they're cheaters. Yeah.
So it's interesting, this house dynamic. And of course, like we said about lore, we don't want to throw things apart too much. But there is something, again, Aysha, you talked about it earlier, fundamentally kind of mean about breaking children up this way.
It is very British, though.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Like,
I imagine they probably
British.
do this shit at British.
No, it is. Yes. Yes. Like, there's a lot of stuff here that seems super alien to us as Americans, but I think would be very familiar to anyone who's ever been to British boarding school.
It would be awesome if they just knew what sorting hats were. Like, they have those. That's not magic.
I can't wait for one of our British listeners to tune in and be like, yeah, when I went to primary school, they said I went in the fucked up kid's house with a snake on it.
Yeah. I don't think that it's exactly like this, but like the concept of head boy to me was insane. I was like, did you say that boy gives head? I don't know.
Yeah, that's how you become head boy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
they talk about like prefects, like this is a thing we all know what this is. I'm like, what? Like, as a child, I remember being like, this is all wizard stuff, but it wasn't.
Like, there's prefects and then, like, head boys, like, super prefect or something?
Yeah, I know.
They changed Philosopher's Stone to Sorcerer's Stone, but that's not what they needed to Americanize. Whatever the prefect is what they needed a little more Americanization.
Like, just as a side thing, I like how the Harry Potter musical uses, like, completely American, they say, like, campus, they say college and stuff like that. They always are like, don't know, they're like, oh, this is just American Hogwarts.
I like to imagine like real world, we would break people up like with a sorting hat, like just like, you're going to be a jock, you're going to be a nerd, that kind of thing. I think that would be interesting, but we leave it to chance in real life. But in this sorting cap, you have this scene where Harry doesn't know what he's going to be, he's where he's going to be rejected, and it's like you're either a Slytherin or a Gryffindor. He's afraid of Slytherin because, it looks scary and he's a nerd. So he goes with Gryffindor. But it is interesting that like a kid can be either thing, which leads to the very annoying, in my opinion, online trend of people being like, "Oh, well, I'm a Slitherpuff. I'm a Ravendor," and just like
Dark
shut up.
Gryffindor.
Shut up. I don't want to hear it.
I mean,
If you want more specificity, do it. I'm going to say it again. If you want more specificity, then choose a Percy Jackson Godhouse, and you can have
an
more
Enneagram. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. So like, the idea of Harry of the Sorting Hat being like, oh, left to my own devices, I would have put you in Slytherin. I think that's interesting. I think that is like the other way that Harry could have gone, where like Draco could have been his friend instead. I think is interesting. I'm sure there's many AUs out there like
Where he was
Slytherin
in-
Harry.
He's been in like every house.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question. How on earth was Dumbledore a Gryffindor? Dumbledore is a Slytherin. Like, he should have been a Slytherin.
Well, I mean, the also, like, the thing where Hagrid says, like, not a single wizard who went bad wasn't in Slytherin, I feel like that already is kind of bullshit, because they think that Sirius Black was evil, but he was in Gryffindor. And like because of that, one of my main theories for a long time was that Harry's dad was in Slytherin, because I was like, well, Sirius had to have been in Slytherin, but it was just an inconsistency, or it was like just Hagrid saying some shit.
Hagrid was wrong is not the most shocking explanation for it, but that is supposed to be like lore you are receiving. But is what it is. But yeah, they break the kids up, and then of course the kids are going to behave like their houses. I do have a genuine question. Is there ever in these books a Hufflepuff that does anything of any kind of note at anything?
Cedric Diggory, right?
Yeah, Diggory's Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Is he? Okay, well, respect to the Hufflepuffs then. But yeah, they get broken up and they get to be in the protagonist house, because of course they do. I don't know why Hermione's not in Ravenclaw. I don't know why Neville's not in Hufflepuff, but they do kind of end up in their spots.
Yeah, Gryffindors seem like squares.
It's a catch-all house for the people who think
they're the Narc house.
They're the jocks. They're the preps, shall we say?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if it revealed that like Gryffindor was like Slytherin too. I feel like that's honestly the truth. They also have like a darkness in them, but. Yeah, you live with your house and you compete for house points and stuff like that,
The house point economy is insane.
Yeah, I don't understand how the house point economy works. It's completely arbitrary.
Dumbledore does something really shady at the end, too. And it's just like, oh, I'll give points to my favorite students.
Oh, that's the best. And we'll get into it.
To be fair, Snape has been taking points from them the whole time.
That's
his least favorite students. So it all evens out. I want to say, too, as insane as the house points things are, like playing high school football, they did have on the wall like how much each player could lift, and they would move up and down, like ranking like children over how much more weight they could pick up than each other. I don't think the
points thing is that insane. Like, I think it's pretty normal to set kids against each other in this sort of weird idea. Is like, this is gonna, it's gonna make them excel and it's gonna promote competition. Like, I feel like that's gotta be the idea. But it just makes everybody insane because school is evil and bad.
It also, like, it's also very inflationary throughout the series. Like, this is the only book where you see single points awarded for correct answers in classes. And then, like, by the end, it's up to, like, 5 or 10.
Yeah, the economy's in shambles by the end.
This is Joe Brandon's America, yeah.
Killing a troll is, like, worth as much, if not less, than answering a question correctly by book 4.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's how they make friends with Hermione, because they kill a troll together. Just little girlfriend things.
Mm-hmm. I do like that it's like, there's not a lot of things you can't, what is it? Something about like killing a troll is something that brings people together, or something along those lines.
There's a few things in this world that you can't help but do and end up friends afterward, and knocking out full-grown mountain trolls is one of them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then so Hermione joins their gang, which desperately needed a girl, if I do say so myself.
That's true.
She is the only reason that Harry and Ron graduate.
Oh, for
they
sure.
They needed feminine energy. I love that Harry and Ron complain so much about their magic schoolwork. It's like, you are being taught to control, like, magic itself. I understand maybe why Ron wouldn't give a shit, but Harry is an ungrateful little bitch. I'm gonna say
I do kind of like how much of a stupid jock Harry is. Like, he's not that good at magic. He just wants to play Quidditch. Like, I don't know. Also, can I say, like, what is it with British people and Christmas? They fucking love Christmas over there. Like, Christmas is, like, extremely big in Harry Potter, and it was in Narnia, too. Like, Santa's there. Like, they fucking love Christmas over there.
Do we have an explanation for Santa in universe here?
There should be.
Do they talk? I don't think they ever talk about him, do they?
Santa's the most powerful Hufflepuff of all time.
Let me do a quick Control F for Father Christmas.
There's no way.
Surely,
I would remember that.
I will not, said Draco Malfoy flatly when Hagrid had proposed this with the air of Father Christmas pulling an extra large toy out of his sack. Okay, that's a simile. What seemed to be Father Christmas. Even the stuffed elf heads on the hall wall wore Father Christmas hats. And oh yeah, there's like the headed house
that shit is so dark. Oh my god.
Oh god.
Yeah, that shit is really dark.
That's also just average British school, I imagine.
Yeah, average.
It's like the stuffed heads of like the
Harry's house that comes with his own slave.
Yeah, we'll get to the slavery.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that next episode. But yeah, there is slavery at Hogwarts. They don't tell you in this one, but it's happening.
Yeah. The first 3 books are the ones that you're like, oh, this is fun. And then you get into the 4th one and you're like, oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
But even in the second one, right, you see the weirdness that this book treats the house elves with, Dobby in particular. Like, he's like, oh, I did something wrong, and Dobby had to iron his hands.
Yeah.
That was the Malfoy's house elf. But still, I mean, you know, the fact that it exists at all.
I think my favorite book is book 3.
Yeah.
I think that's the best book. I think it's legitimately
certainly the best movie. I don't remember the movie.
Oh, for sure.
I don't have enough distinction of the books in like my brain, but like I feel like I remember the movies as distinct entities better than I remember the books. Like what they look like versus the language.
I think that Lupin is one of her best characters. Like one of her most successful characters, who has like I don't know, there's just like he's very believable as for what he is, which is like the gay uncle.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's marginalized for being a werewolf, and so like he's one of the few characters that has any legitimate insight into the whole house elf thing, right? He says straight up in book 5 that if the goblins join Voldemort, it'll be because Wizarding Society denied them all these freedoms that Voldemort promises them.
Yeah, and Remus Lupin is woke.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's woke.
It's because he has AIDS, apparently. According to J.K. Rowling.
He got the disease that makes you woke.
Look, it's like once a month.
You could have made Remus like a metaphor for being gay, which would have been kind of not great either, but better than AIDS. Like,
well, you could have just made him gay, you know?
Yeah,
Especially because there's another guy with werewolfism who's intentionally gives werewolfism to other people, including children, which is like, oh, cool. We got that guy.
And his name is also Fenrir Greyback.
Oof.
I mean, he does sound hot, I'm not going to lie. But
I know. Fenrir Greyback, sounds kind of nice with it.
You get it. But yeah, so like we have most of this middle book is just world building, fun little things. You've got them bitching about their schoolwork. You've got history of magic, them being mad because of their ghost Professor Binns. That one, that's my favorite professor at Hogwarts, by the way. I want to say,
literally, like I would
Professor
like.
Binns, I feel strongly about this.
My favorite is Professor Trelawney. She is fucking queen, hot mess.
Does she show up in this book? I don't remember.
Book 3.
It's 3.
God, I know these books so fucking well. There's so much I could have in my brain, and instead I just have Harry Potter lore in my brain.
Hey, you know, we all have our. I have like the Bible in this place, so you know.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're like, there's a conspiracy. There's something that's been brought into Hogwarts and hidden, and they think that Professor Snape, the mean teacher, is trying to get it.
Yeah, and Snape seems suspicious because he's yelling at Professor Quirrell, which is this nervous guy in a turban. He's Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. You know, they always see him yelling at him during the Quidditch game when Harry is being an absolute baller, an absolute jock, an absolute pimp. Snape seems like he's cursing him. Turns out he's counter cursing him, but whatever. Snape just seems like a bad guy, and he is, of course,
he's very
he does
unpleasant.
like to abuse this child.
Yeah, he's nasty.
He's a nasty little guy, but you know, he actually is protecting Harry. But like also is still abusing Harry. I will say, like, it does. I suppose this is the moral relativism being mentioned by like Focus on the Family. I don't even know what they were talking about, to be honest. I guess this is it, but it's like that or like breaking the rules being good sometimes. But like, yeah, Snape's deal is like, your father was horrible to me, but then he saved my life. And later on we find he was in love with his mom. So I'm going to be like weird to you for your entire life. And then you're going to name your son after me.
It's not just Harry that gets it either. Like, he is horrible to like Herm. I was flipping through book 4
He's
today.
He's a racist.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like Hermione gets hit with that like jinx that makes her like teeth go like past her fucking like chin, and he looks at her and he's like, "I see no difference."
Yeah,
he's
horrible. Yeah, he's a cunt. Like, but he is kind of fun. I love Professor Snape.
Cunt, but he is cunty. So,
yeah,
you know, we have to, especially like, and I mean, you know, it's worth mentioning.
Rickman,
like,
come on.
Yeah, Alan Rickman, but it's also worth mentioning by like the end, J.K. Rowling even says she is self-consciously thinking of Alan Rickman writing the last few books. Like, it is.
Evanna Lynch as Luna Lovegood as well. She had like literally that kid's voice in her head.
Luna Lovegood is so cool. Harry should have dated Luna, not Ginny.
100%. Like, he had no idea like what he was missing out on.
Low-key quirky with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say,
white girl.
In Ginny's defense, the only kind of proper defense I can think of her is that my little sister, as a redhead, did love to dress up as Ginny Weasley at one point, and that was very cute.
I think Ginny is fine. It's just mega goofy for him to marry the girl that he dated in high school. That's goofy. The epilogue is stupid. Like,
oh, sure. But to be fair, the entire wizarding world revolves around this high school.
I'll tell you something doubly weird about the epilogue is that I don't know if it's mentioned in the epilogue, but like, you know, Angelina Johnson, the chaser on the Gryffindor team who's later the captain, she dates Fred, and then of course, you know, hope I don't spoil it for anybody, Fred dies in book 7, and she ends up getting with George.
That rocks. I didn't remember that, but that rules. I love
that. And then they named their kid Fred II.
Oh my god. They're on some freak shit in the Weasley family. You know, I respect it.
I mean, yeah, you know the Weasley. I mean, obviously that the Weasley parents are doing it raw every night because they have so many fucking kids.
Yeah.
Just going crazy in that like weird treehouse.
Mr. Weasley's hot in the movie.
Yeah, he's serving, but also, you know, I should know. Yeah, I love that that Johnson and the Weasley twins have like a Beau and Hunter Biden thing going on. If you don't know what that is, look up Hunter. In fact, look up Hunter Biden's relationship with Beau's widow if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Fred goes on to become a lawyer, gets somebody cleared of like horrific like molestation charges.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go into the Forbidden Forest and they meet a ripped centaur. There's like, I forgot about the fucking centaurs. They're so random.
They show up and they just are like, Mars is bright tonight. And then another one shows up and says the same thing. Again, her comedic timing's quite good.
Yeah, she's quite funny. Like, I will give the lady her chops. She's quite funny.
Yes.
And this is where we see a hooded figure drinking unicorn blood to prolong his life, which we find out we think is Snape, but it is, of course, Voldemort. Yeah.
We're doing a fucking terrible job at recounting this book, but just read it. It takes one day.
Or you've
read Harry Potter. Come on.
Yeah, no, you know the
Watch
the
the movie.
I want to read a little bit about these centaurs. Yes, thank you. What was that? The centaur didn't answer. He had astonishingly blue eyes like pale sapphires. He looked carefully at Harry, his eyes lingering on the scar that stood out livid on Harry's forehead. You are the Potter boy, he said. You had better get back to Hagrid. The forest is not safe at this time, especially for you. Can you ride? It'll be quicker this way. My name is Firenze.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Like, this whole scene is like, why is this so romantic? What is going on?
Ronan and Bane bursting through the trees, their flanks heaving and sweaty. Like, she wants to write more about these guys. And I wonder...
She should.
But she does, and then, like, don't they, like, gang rape Professor Umbridge? Isn't that, like, a thing that's implied later?
It's heavily implied, and, like, we'll get into the gender politics of, like, some of how Rowling deals with, like, her particularly, like, femme-coded villains. But, like, yeah, it's real gnarly.
It's real awful, like... And I think that, like... Yeah, the way that people are punished in these, and there's a really good YouTube video by the YouTuber Sean about Harry Potter, where he went and he like he'd never read the books before, so he read it and he read all of them, and then made a video about what he thought of them. And one of the big things he keeps bringing up is this very like liberal worldview, in that like there are good people and there are bad people. And everything the good people do is good, and everything the bad people do, like, so there are no bad or good actions. There are only bad and good people. So, like, when bad guys do violence, it's bad. But when good guys do violence, it's good. And this is, like, a very prevalent worldview. Like, we've seen this, like, just look on the news. Like, it's great when Israel bombs Palestine. That's great. That's good violence, right? Like, according to the news.
It's equivocates.
And stuff like that, right? And that's all the way through. And Sean points out that like it's fine to make fat jokes about the Dursleys because they're bad, but when Draco calls Mrs. Weasley fat, that's bad because Draco's bad and Miss Weasley is good. So that's all the way through this story. There are actions that are very villainous, but are done by heroes. So
there are, and they're against the backdrop of like, you know, Rowling has a lot to say in books 5 through 7 as well about the failure and the corruption of these bourgeois institutions, right? But what ultimately kills Voldemort is not, you know, any particular like wand work, any particular skill or ingenuity on Harry's part. It's the technicality of him not being able to be affected by the Elder Wand, you know? It's like, so no matter what no matter what the bad guys do, like, you know, eventually they will be tripped up on some rule or other. Eventually Robert Mueller will find out that Trump's guilty of something, right? You know, like the system,
I really hate in children's stories where they don't kill the villain. That always really gets like spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender, I guess. Like, the fact that, like, Aang refuses to kill Ozai, I thought was like, oh, this sucks. And then in Korra, like, it comes back to bite him, which I think is cool, and I think that they fixed it. But, like, in Harry Potter, it's like, no, you kill this fucking guy. Like, come on, Harry. You just shoot him with your gun. He sucks.
The whole reason that, like, the fucking, like... It plays into the greater problem with the Wizarding world, right? Is that, like, there is... yes, Ryan, we are anti-Steven Universe on this pod. There is this whole sense that, you know, to my mind, like, it goes back to the casual violence of it all, and how, like, you can kind of give it a pass because in the Wizarding world, you have Skelegro, right? You have substances that can easily regrow bones when they've been shattered, right? You have
like lines like, you know, Oliver Wood, the Quidditch captain, saying, "Oh, we've never had anything worse than a few broken jaws," because you can regrow a jaw quite quickly.
Right, and you have these solutions to problems that make this violence, you know, not better, certainly, but at least easier to bounce back from. So there's more of an acculturation to it among the wizards, A. But B, like, very early on, when Hagrid says, well, we can't interact with the Muggle world because everybody would want magical solutions to their problems. Like, the next question is, okay, well, but then why aren't these solutions provided? Why isn't there more of an effort to integrate these things?
Right. Also, like, I know that this is, like, I haven't really watched the Magical Beasts movies, but in the Magical Beasts movies, doesn't Grindelwald want to stop World War II? Isn't that what he's doing? And they're like, no, we have to do World War II, actually. Like, what do you mean?
Because, like, this guy is bad and he might do something weird. I don't know. Like, especially the second movie is just fucking dire. Like,
okay, so I haven't seen this, but is Grindelwald like the Molotov-Ribbentrop pact? Like, what's going on?
No, Grindelwald is like I almost said Hagrid's gay lover. He's Dumbledore's gay lover, who is like Voldemort before Voldemort was Voldemort, and like it's weird. Like, you get a sense of, actually very early in the series when we see fucking Dumbledore's chocolate frog card. It's like, okay, he defeated the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945. Yeah, and it's like, okay, like, presumably it lines up with the Second World War somehow, and it was so much more interesting when it was left to speculation.
Right. Or when you hear about it a little bit in, like, when you get Dumbledore's backstory, I think it's interesting, like, when you get to see him as, like, you get the experience with Harry of, like, when you're growing up and you start seeing your role models as humans and you see that they're flawed and they've made mistakes, which I think is really cool. And I like that element of book 7. I know a lot of people don't, but I do.
There is a little part here that I actually quite like that humanizes Dumbledore. And it's also important to our overall plot, to like bringing the plot home. Because Harry at a certain point finds this thing called the Mirror of Erised, which is just desire backwards, right? And he sees his family in it. He sees his parents, and he sees a sort of extended family that he never got to have and interact with that loves him. And Dumbledore says about the mirror, it shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. You who have never known your family see them standing around you. Ronald Weasley, who's been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of them all. However, this mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. And then, he's going to move the mirror the next day, and Harry asks him, well, what do you see? And he has a kind of funny line, and he says, I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. One can never have enough socks. Which then Harry reflects a little later on. He's like, that was a quirky answer, but probably not true. So
right.
You do have
because he's not going to tell Harry, I see myself getting rod by the evil wizard Grindelwald or whatever.
Yeah. But like, I think that's quite effective little moment of like, oh, there is something sad behind this like genius old man's little eyes.
Yeah, but he never gets to be a power bottom again.
I mean, like, oh no, come on, Dumbledore gets mad dick. Are you kidding?
Who's from? Here's my question: who's he fucking? Like the Minister of Magic?
That's a question.
He's on Wizard Grinder for sure, whatever that is.
I feel like, yeah, you go to like a Quidditch match, and it's just like it's a rule, like something like the. Well, I was going to say the restrooms, but don't they disappear there? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, Dumbledore said
they have restrooms literally to cruise in them.
They did say, like, oh, he gets called to the Ministry of Magic all the time. So maybe that's what's happening.
And Dumbledore says that he doesn't need a cloak to be invisible.
That's true.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that guy gets mad dick.
There is some quality, like, I wish I could find it again. I don't remember what the fucking title was, but there is some quality, like, some genuinely quality and creative, like magical, like porn fics of Harry Potter on adultfanfiction.net. In particular, like some polyjuice stuff that's pretty interesting and like genderful.
One of the first fan fictions I ever read, like sexual fan fictions, was about Harry Potter getting at the end of the Battle of Hogwarts. Just as it's going down, Voldemort's like knows he's gonna lose, so he hits Harry with a sissification spell.
Yes.
And he's like, I can't kill him. And you know who Harry goes to because he's like horny. It's fucking Draco. He goes to Draco and he's like, Draco, breed me.
Oh my God, incredible. You're my alpha.
It's so cool. And then Draco, who's like somehow allowed to like even be alive after he sided with the fascists, is just railing Harry Potter. And he's like, And he was like, "You ruined my plans." And he's like fucking him. I just remember reading that and I was like, curious.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there is a lot of like the Harry Potter universe is ripe for pornography parodies because there's so much stuff in it that could very easily just be porno stuff.
Wands are everywhere.
For those with eyes to see. Anyway, I think it is always valid to write Harry Potter pornography. When you do it, you are actually improving Harry Potter. So everybody who's listening to this, I want you to all at least write one piece of Harry Potter fan fiction.
It's praxis. It is.
Yeah.
So, the only Harry Potter fan fiction I've ever written was in my period of life where I was getting paid to like write fights between fictional characters. And someone commissioned me to write Harry Potter versus Percy Jackson and like to analyze it in depth, how that would go. I did decide Percy Jackson would probably have to win because
he's a god.
Yeah, it was kind of a stupid fight. I honestly had to like give Harry a little more credit than he probably deserved. But that wasn't, so that's the only one that only Harry Potter fan fiction I've read. But I did find it. I'd still have it, and it's, fine.
There is one that it falls off fairly quickly after like midway through chapter 2, but there's one called A Bad Week at the Wisengamot that I think still holds up, that does better world building than Rowling herself. Funnier in places, certainly. It diverges from like what if Harry was expelled in his 5th year, and it transpires that like all of Wizarding Britain's laws are like based on like bloodline shit that collapses as soon as Harry Potter is persona non grata and has his wand snapped and leaves the country. But weirdly, it like Rube Goldbergs itself into Voldemort like being killed at the end of the week, so it all works out.
There is a Harry Potter Draco fanfic that I was actually never really in Harry Potter fandom. Like I deeply respect the hustle. And I have been in fandom for a lot of my life, but I was never very in Harry Potter fandom. But I did read a Drarry fanfic a couple years ago that was like about Harry post epilogue, or not post epilogue, but post book, where he's like has broken up with Ginny because obviously he's like racked with PTSD and depressed, hates his job at the Wizard Cops, and like wants to kill himself, and he ends up getting together with Draco, who like owns a museum or something. I don't know. It was cute. I liked it.
Yeah, I read a really good one, but with much better world building than actually Harry Potter itself. It involves a character named Vampire Potter.
Yeah,
for
sure. I mean, of course, a classic.
Had to drop the reference at some point.
Yeah.
But to bring this thing home, they find that there is a place where this secret artifact that turns out to be the philosopher's/sorcerer's stone is hidden. What does it do? It can turn anything into gold, and it can give you everlasting life. I don't know why it does those two things, but it does those two things. It gives you the two things you want.
Well, I mean, the Philosopher's Stone is like a thing from mythology. Like,
I've just always found it odd that it does those two specific things, gold and life, which I guess is just like
it does other stuff too, I think.
Oh, does
it?
It
depends on what you read.
Okay. Well, in Full Metal Alchemist, there's a whole lot more going on.
yeah, for sure.
But in this, it does those two things. And they're kind of decided, well, Snape, it turns out it's Quirrell, is going to steal it, and no one will believe us, so the only thing we can do is to break in ourselves, and they have to get through all these little traps and puzzles.
Pretty cool sequence, actually, with like all the different little like the human chess game, the logic puzzle that Hermione solves.
They have to use all their little skills. Mm-hmm. I do find it funny that this is how like Hogwarts decided to protect this. They were like, we're going to have like, this door won't open unless you solve the chess game, instead of like just this door won't open. I find that to be very funny and amusing. I will say,
if they need it? What if they need some gold?
That's true. Mirror of Erised is where this thing's hidden, and it's Dumbledore's thing. And it's like, the only way to get the Philosopher's Stone is if you need it for like a good purpose.
Right.
Because if you see it, because if you see yourself using it, you won't have it.
Well, and that's the thing. This is the question that I posed to you the other day, Jacob.
Yeah.
Like, rules as written, somebody can get the stone out of the mirror if they want to get it but not use it, which technically Quirrell qualifies because he's trying to get it for his master.
Right, but he sees himself giving it to Lord Voldemort because he wants it to give it to Lord Voldemort.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ultimately, like, Harry kind of didn't need to be here.
It's the question of, like, well, like, why didn't Indiana Jones just not go to the Ark of the Covenant? Why didn't he just let the Nazis melt themselves? You know, they could fucking bring it to Berlin and open it in front of Hitler, and then the war is solved.
Yeah.
That said, it's fine if the hero is dumb. Like, that's also fine. Especially the child hero is dumb. Like, ultimately, this wasn't necessary. But, like, they did get the bad guy. My question is, did Quirrell die here?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like he did. Does he not show up later? Like, because there's, like, in the pensive where he's, like, watching people be tortured.
He's specifically said to have died in book 5.
Okay, all right.
I don't know. It's Harry Potter because Voldemort can't touch. Okay. Oh yeah. Voldemort's on the back of Quirrell's head. This is gnarly
which is wild. It's cool. I think that's really sick.
Let me read that actually.
I remember it blowing my mind when I was like 12.
And of course, it's got that. It's got the textual pun, of course, of a guy being two-faced, right? Because Quirrell's
a man with two faces. Yeah. Can I just say a thing that kind of irritates me about the chapter names and the pictures is that the pictures are of something that happens in the chapter, but they don't necessarily match the name, and it annoys me every single time.
Like, let's see. I mean, Man with Two Faces is Quirrell.
It's like there's one called the Sorting Hat, and then it's Peeves. I'm like, that's not the Sorting Hat. Shut up.
Yeah, that is weird. There's the art's weirdly not. What's the word that I'm looking for? Like,
it's not. I don't like it. I think it's a little bit odd.
I don't think it's distinctive enough. Yeah. No, I just remember having like long, like, speculative conversations with my family when I was much younger about, oh, who is this in the chapter art? We legit don't know. And like trying to, you're right, Aisha. Trying to like guess what's to come based on the art is in many cases a fool's errand.
Actually, Lenora, that is the titular Harry Potter. In all of them, it's always Harry Potter. So here's the Quirrell scene. You know, they're confronting each other, right? And then you hear the high voice spoke again. Let me speak to him face to face. Master, you're not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. This is my episode where I'm just doing the most. Harry felt as if Devil's Snare was rooting him to the spot. He couldn't move a muscle. Petrified, he watched as Quirrell reached up and began to unwrap his turban. What was going on? The turban fell away. Quirrell's head looked strangely small without it. Then he turned slowly on the spot. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. Where there should have been a back to Quirrell's head, there was a face. The most terrible face Harry had ever seen. It was chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils like a snake. Harry Potter, it whispered. Harry tried to take a step backwards, but his legs wouldn't move. See what I've become? The face said. Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body, but there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Love that shit.
Yeah, Quirrell just let him inside him. Not to bring up the Harry Potter musical again, but the fact that they do Quirrell and Voldemort with just like two actors standing back to back the whole time is extremely funny the whole time.
I will say this is the only thing I can think of when I'm recalling the first movie that was like quite bad.
Yeah.
Because it looks terrible. Yeah, it doesn't look very good.
There is some CG that does. I watched this just yesterday. There's some CG that does not hold up. Like, I think most egregiously when the owls are delivering the mail.
See, I'm kind of fine with shitty CG in a scene that doesn't need to be scary. But if a scene, you know what I mean?
It should have been a prosthesis. Like it should have been like they should have built a thing for the back of his head.
Who knows? It's not a big deal. Just came to mind. But I love this. And then Harry's like, wait, my touch burns Quirrell because of love magic. I'm going to put my hands on his face and burn.
Yeah. I love that Harry Potter genuinely killed this man. Incredible.
Yeah.
Unreal
Harry
respect.
drops a guy at age 12. No hesitation. And I don't think Harry even feels guilt over this. He's just like, did what needed to be done.
No, 100%. But like, it's weird. Like, how do they phrase it? He's a funny man, Dumbledore. This is Harry speaking. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here, you know? I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just taught us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident he let me find out how the mirror worked. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could. Yeah, Dumbledore's off his rocker, all right, said Ron proudly.
Yeah, Ron's right.
Yeah.
That guy's a maniac.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, like, Dumbledore knows about the prophecy that's like one of them's got to kill the other one.
Right.
So that's why he keeps tossing Harry at him.
Because maybe
it's like one of these days.
Maybe like this problem will be solved before Voldemort comes back to full power. Spoiler alert, it ain't. But yeah, there's that is actually a good point, because otherwise there's no reason to let Harry face Voldemort in this book other than to justify the last minute house point swing.
Yeah.
I love that. That is so bitchy. I love it so much. Just at the end, they've already decorated everything for Slytherin.
I know.
Dumbledore's like, but wait.
I was like, come on. Slytherin's cool, though. They're the cool ones.
But as silly as it is, though, like, structurally speaking, like...
It is very satisfying.
It is, yeah. And with the prophecy or without, structurally it's the same, right? The whole series rests on the fallout of decades of proxy conflicts.
I do like the element of, like, Harry has just spends his whole life kind of being used. I like that a lot, like, by this person that he really trusts and has, like, put his faith in and he thinks has his best interest at heart. I think that's very, like, a classic thing to happen in an adventure story.
And then later, when he needs some, like, emotional recovery time, he gets used by Draco.
But
Sorry.
no, it's effective. It works. And it's also very just, this kind of environment too. Like this kind of mentor at this like boarding school could absolutely be this like weird manipulative freak who's like living through his students.
What is the book? Is it Half-Blood Prince that Harry gets super obsessed with following Malfoy around?
Yes. Because he's like, it's like that whole bullshit with Malfoy fixing the vanishing cabinet and whatnot.
Yeah. Voldemort, like when he's like fucking Hitler Youth.
But that's Harry Potter, and he goes home to the Dursleys, and at the very end, the very last thing is like, I'm not allowed to use magic, but they don't know that.
I'm gonna torment my fucking cousin.
So yeah, you end on that note of like Harry's gonna go back and be like, Dudley, remember what happened to your ass when the tail grew out of it?
Like, get ready for more ass play.
There is a very funny there's a very funny bit in chapter 1 of book 2 where like Dudley's tormenting him on his birthday and Harry is like mumbo jumbo jiggery pokery, like just pretending to do magic
to freak him out.
Anyway, so that's how it wraps up. And I mean, why do we think I've already talked a little bit, but
they're fun kids books. It sucks that she turned out to be a fucking psychopath. Like that sucks. It genuinely makes me feel bad. I know a ton of people who had Harry Potter tattoos covered up because like it meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to me. Like I love these books. I met a lot of people through loving these books. I think it's and I like to read before these books, but they definitely I think really led a lot of kids to love reading, and it really is so. It really goes to show you that there are a lot of problems with these books. Like you can see elements of her worldview that are, in here. We didn't even talk about the goblins and how anti-Semitic their portrayal is and stuff like that.
I do think the movies are more.
Yeah, the movies are way worse.
Way more explicit in that, yeah.
But
there was kind of an accident in the movie where when Rowling started going crazy politically, people started going back and trying to look for her being crazy from the start. And in the scene in the bank, there is a giant Star of David on the floor. They're like, oh, they know she did that. No, it turned out it was just on like the bank in real life, which was just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still not great when you've got goblins in your scene. You would hope a director would cover that up,
Yeah.
or
You would think.
not have that. But no, I do want you to finish your
Yeah.
thought there, though, because you
Yeah,
were.
and it sucks. Like it really sucks. And this is just a danger of loving something. And like, for instance, like, one of my favorite books is American Gods. And
Yeah.
that has recently become not so great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it really, it both changes your relationship to a work of art and doesn't, because like there is still that work of art that existed for you before you knew these things. And even though this thing was made, and I agree with the people who are like, you should not fucking give money to Harry Potter. I agree with that. I don't
Right.
I don't think that you should buy things, like, I don't think you should go to Harry Potter World. I think it is worth boycotting her stuff.
Yeah, she has said straight up that, like, yeah, the continued bankability of this thing makes me completely comfortable in the things that I express.
Right,
Like,
exactly. So I agree with that. However, I don't think that people need to feel bad. I mean, it's always good to analyze the things that you love and why you love them, and see like what they do, and like what kind of underlying themes there are in them, and that's what we're doing here. Like, that's the point of this story, of this podcast. But I do urge people to like not just feel pressured to be like, oh no, this sucks, because I think that's a
Yeah.
bad way to look at art. If an author sucks, that doesn't mean the work of art sucks. That's not how life works.
well, and indeed, thematically, in a weird way, like, Rowling herself has come to embody one of the major themes of these books, which is that the world that you grow up in that seems magical and seems like intriguing was created by, turns out, some very not great people. And so part of building a society, part of engaging in any kind of political project, and part of just living your life is picking up the pieces that these people left behind and shattering them if need be.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's really cool that there are people who still care about Harry Potter fandom and are still, making Harry and Draco fuck nasty or whatever. I think that's great. And I think that you should keep doing that, because she probably hates it.
And at the end of the day, what's your relationship to it? It's going to be complicated if you can't enjoy it anymore.
Yeah,
Understandable.
100%.
If you still enjoy it, understandable. I mean, we've got 12 hours cumulatively of this podcast of me dealing with my relationship with J.R.R. Tolkien. So, like, Mr. Anarcho-monarchist over there. And I still have the tattoo from Lord of the Rings. So, I'm not going to look down my nose at anybody for loving Harry Potter. It is a weird, thing. Yeah. Especially something of this size that can be marred by that. So I'm not going to tell anyone how to feel, but what I will say is, if you write something that becomes this meaningful to this many people, consider shutting the fuck up.
Jesus Christ!
Consider shutting up and just resting on your laurels a little bit. You're allowed to do that when you've done this. But I had a lot of fun breaking this down. I had a fun rereading this. And I'm going to have fun talking about this series more as we get into the later books that are have a bigger political character, and as we get into Cursed Child, which is real chaotic downturn. But I also have really enjoyed talking to you again, Aysha. Aysha, you've been on the podcast before, but if this is someone's first time, you have anything to plug? You have anything you want people to know about?
Yeah, sure. I am a game dev in real life. I currently am unemployed, but I recently had a game come out called Life is Strange Double Exposure. I think it's pretty good. We just won a GDC award for it, which was pretty cool. And I have my own game coming out with a tiny little indie company called The Sky Left Us, and it's currently got a Steam page, and you can wishlist it, which really helps us. So it would be great if you guys could do that. That sounds like something would be cool that you might like. It's like a visual novel about like class and climate change, and it's got a lot of really beautiful art. And I'm really excited about it. And yeah, those things. You can find me on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is just my name, Aysha U Farah.
Is it still Normal Redis as your like?
Oh yeah, my DN
I
is
love
Normal Redis right now.
That's so funny. But yeah, we will link all.
Yeah, I was trying to type Norman Reedus and I wrote Normal Reedus and I laughed for about 30 minutes, so I had to make it my
When I
DN.
saw that on Blue Sky, like I actually laughed out loud. Normal Reedus is so good. But yeah, we will link all that, especially including the Steam link in all this show notes. Please, if you've listened this far, absolutely, you didn't pay anything for this. You at least owe a Steam wish list right there. What?
I wish you listed it literally right now. Y'all have no excuse.
Follow our Blue Sky for it too. It has like 85 followers. Absolutely. Please help my 100%. Analytics.
Well, we've already kind of led on, but next week we will be talking about the second kind of half of the Harry Potter series, anchored by Order of the Phoenix. So keep an eye out for that. We have another really fun guest for that one. I won't say who yet, but y'all will enjoy it. It's another returning guest, so it's going to be fun. And as always, appreciate everybody. Lenore, do you have anything to bring us out here?
Yeah, again, I miss when this thing was good. I miss the sort of collective. It's a very sort of, everybody talks about how like Pokemon Go was like the last thing that really brought everybody together, right? And this was that vibe before then. Yeah. This is where you could just shoot the shit with total strangers about about this thing that it seemed that everybody was following. And it feels so much easier just to be shuffled into like smaller and smaller groups. And at the end of the day, if this series inspires you to do anything, read another book. There is no book that one person has read. And as I think we've all learned from reading these, there is great power in the various houses coming together.
Amen.
Y'all have a good one.
Mischief Manish.
Thank you for listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.